So what we're going to paint, we're going to do a landscape, and we're going to do sort of a horizon through here. This will be sky, and this will be the sky reflected down here. So we'll have some trees in the background receding off into the distance, some hills and things, and some trees in the foreground silhouetted, because we're going to do a really kind of misty late afternoon, lots of golds and things like that. So most of this will be sort of not a lot of detail, but lots of silhouettes. But there will be that lovely transition from light to dark, and again from light to dark where the reflections are, and then other aspects will also have those lovely transitions or gradations of colour or tone. Okay, so we have a dilemma here. I recommend that you work with a smaller canvas than the one I'm working with, because doing a gradation with acrylics is not that easy initially until you get the hang of it anyway. And so what we're going to do is we're going to strategize a little bit. Because this is a reasonably big canvas, I'm going to do a gradation from darker through to lighter here, but I also want to do one darker through to lighter here. Now, I have to be able to mix up enough paint to be able to do this and this, and this and this. In order to give yourself a little bit of time, I highly recommend getting the back of your canvas, if you've got one of these canvases, these stretched canvases, turning the canvas on its face down on the floor and pouring a cup of water into it and just spreading it around on the back of the canvas so that the canvas is thoroughly wet. And what that will mean is that when you flip the canvas back the right way and do the painting, the surface will be damp enough to stop sucking all the moisture out of your paint and give you a little bit more time to do your gradation. So most of this picture is going to be kind of in this yellow kind of colour, but I'm mixing a colour called dioxazine purple with that, and I'm also mixing a pile of white with that. Now I want that to warm up a touch more, so I'm going to add a little bit of red to that. So now I'm just going to add a little bit of water to that because I want this paint to travel. Now what I've done here, as you can see, I've done a band across the top like that. And now for my next gradation, I want to keep that wet. I'm going to add a little bit of white and paint just below that there like that. And blend the two together. Now I can see that I probably should have added a bit more white to that, but that's okay. And take your time pulling those colours together like that. So you end up with a nice blend. So one of the things I want to speak to you about is managing your palette. So we're doing a gradation of colour here, and we've mixed up 3 or 4 incremental shifts in colour while we've been doing it. So this is my darker colour here, and you can see that's the next paler colour, and then the next paler colour, and the next paler colour. And I mix them all up on my palette before I put them up on here. Now, the beautiful thing about that is that it means that I can come back and match these colours if I want to later on, but it also means that it helps me with my process. So now, just to show you, I mentioned before I was going to put some hills in the background. While I've got that darker colour, I'm just going to come in here now, and I'm just going to like that, and that paint's still quite wet, so if I just poke that around a little bit like this, white paint that's underneath it will show through a little bit and make that hill in the background there softer, like that. Got my darker colour, and if I do that, you should be able to see a little bit of a difference between those hills there in the background and those hills in the foreground, and I might even put another one there. We've got a little mountain in the background. So What we're doing though is we're still playing on this gradation here. We've got that lovely gradation that creates the illusion of the sky, but now we're starting to create the illusion of gradations of tone in these hills here to create the impression of the hills being further away or closer. So now I'm just going to create that lovely mirror image. And now I'm just going to repeat that whole sky process. So if we wanted to create the illusion of it being absolutely like a mirror, then all we do is reproduce what we've done here in reverse down here. But I'm just going to show you a lovely little trick that we can do. We'll create a little bit of ruffle on the surface of the water and kind of saves a bit of work. It gives this lovely, lovely, lovely effect. So I'm just going to put the top of that hill there like that. And I'm going to cheat. So I'm just going to drag that brush down like that. Drag the brush across like that, just to kind of soften it and just to break up those shapes, and we should be able to just see some lines through it like that. Okay, so now I'm just going to mirror that same shape of that hill there. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm adding a little bit of dioxazine purple to that colour because I want to create another layer of trees and I want them to seem closer. Now I'm going to use the tip of this paintbrush to do that, but I'm going to break up the lines like that because I want to create the impression of sort of the tops of trees and a little bit more detail there. But we really don't want to put too much detail in there. And we've gone back to that, dragging that brush down like that, just to create the impression of that little bit of ruffle on the surface. So what we've done here is we've created the illusion of distance by these incremental shifts in tone as we've come forward here. And we're going to continue that with this little clump of trees over here. So I'm going to add a little bit more dioxazine purple to that, and that will create the impression of the trees being a little bit closer and a little bit clearer. So I'm just getting that darker colour here now, and I'm going to create the impression of some trees that are going to hang out over the water like that. Okay, so this was the colour that I used for that last bunch of trees. I'm just going to add a little bit more dioxazine purple to that. But this time, I'm going to get a little bit of phthalo blue. And just add that to it again, and that will deepen it up a little bit and bluify it slightly, maybe just a touch more. So I'm going to, that will be my little sandbank there. And we'll just do that off there. And now I'm going to put some smaller trees here, lower trees there. Bring that down a lot further, I think, because this is going to be where my waterline is, so I can bring that down a lot further. So I'm just going to add a little bit of interest here, so I'm going to make this a little bay like that. While I've got this same colour, I'm just going to put a couple of tree trunks in here. I don't know if I said that. I think I stopped talking. So whatever happens in the water, or sorry, on the land, is going to be reflected somehow, or in the sky is going to be reflected somehow in the water. It doesn't have to be exact, we just have to put a representation of it there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do this little bit of sand here, down the bottom corner here, and I'm going to put a couple of little plants, reeds and things like that in the water, and that'll be the picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit of this colour and I'm going to put it across here to suggest that that's reflecting this part here. So I'm going to create that little bit of wet sand along that edge there and reflect some light here and there, and we're just about done. Mix that up and I'm just going to run that along that edge there like that. I'm going to show you another little trick. So I want that to look like wet sand there. So I'm just putting that across there with a fairly skinny brush. And now I'm going to get a broader brush and dampen it and just drag it along like that, and that will soften all of that edge there like that. To really create that impression of wet sand, I'm just going to do this, and this is dry brush down like that, right on that edge, and wet brush across. And while I've got that, I'm just going to do that and make a few more ripples. Okay, so I'm going to get my blue. I'm going to get my yellow. And that's way too yellow. I'll get a lot more blue. There we go. So that's going to be my lily colour, and I'm going to steal some of that yellow I mixed up before and add it to it. Might even throw a bit more blue in just to deepen it up a bit. That should do us. This is the Cheetah's Guide to Painting Water Lilies. Now, objects in the distance appear flatter, so as you get closer like that you can round them off a little bit. And a few here, just because I can. Okay, so I've got a little bit of that naphtha red. Got a pile of white there, like that. This lovely musky pink colour I've mixed up is now going to be those lovely little, oops, flowers in there. They're a bit lost, but that's all right. It's just a flash of colour. Might put a couple over there with that. Put a few ripples. Reflecting some of that whiter light from here. Water's really interesting stuff. It'll find light from all different angles. That one's a bit strong, we'll do that. So what I've been trying to do here is introduce a few core skills. The first one is to practice that shift in colour or tone, and you'll be surprised at if you master that, just how many paintings make themselves available to you, or how many opportunities to paint things become available. But the really, really important thing I want you to remember here is to have fun. Play. It really doesn't matter. It's just a canvas. You can paint over it again, and it doesn't matter if you have 2 or 3 goes at it. You will eventually master these skills, and you might master them a lot faster than you think. Now, I just want to point something else out too, is that we've done this with this particular range of colours. Imagine now, or once you've done this a couple of times, change the colours. Maybe go purples, or go into blues, or make it a moonlit night, and repeat exactly the same processes, but just changing the colours, and you'll be surprised just how many really, really interesting pictures you'll come up with.